Sarah Martinez clutched her phone with trembling fingers as she sat in her broken-down Honda Civic on the desolate stretch of Highway 287. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty road. Her battery indicator showed a cruel red line, less than 5% remaining. Miles from the nearest town with no cell towers in sight, she felt the weight of complete isolation pressing down on her shoulders. Earlier that evening, Sarah had been driving home from her late shift at the diner when her car started making that awful grinding sound. Now, stranded in what locals called no man's land, she realized how vulnerable she truly was. The temperature was dropping fast, and she could see her breath forming small clouds in the increasingly cold air. Her thin work uniform offered little protection against the biting wind that whistled through the slightly cracked window. With her phone's battery at its final moments, Sarah managed to send one desperate message to a local Facebook group she'd joined months ago, the kind of community page where people shared everything from lost pets to recommendations for mechanics. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. Stranded on 287 near mile marker 15. Car broke down. Getting really cold. Please hurry. The message delivered just as her screen went black. What Sarah didn't know was that her plea for help had reached more than just ordinary community members. Among the group's members were several patched members of the Bandidos motorcycle club, men who lived by an unwritten code that protecting the innocent wasn't just a choice. It was a sacred duty. These weren't the stereotypical bikers that movies portrayed, but fathers, veterans, and working men who understood what it meant to be vulnerable and alone. Within minutes of Sarah's message appearing in the group, leather-clad fingers were typing responses, engines were roaring to life, and a rescue mission was already in motion. Sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, and tonight, Sarah was about to discover that angels don't always wear halos. Sometimes they wear leather cuts and ride steel horses. If stories like this restore your faith in humanity, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started with this incredible tale of brotherhood and protection. Tommy Diesel Rodriguez was the first to see Sarah's message pop up on his phone screen. As the road captain for the local Bandidos chapter, Tommy had spent 15 years in the club and understood that their reputation often preceded them in ways that weren't always fair. But he also knew that reputation came with responsibility. When someone needed help, especially someone vulnerable and alone, the brotherhood didn't hesitate. He immediately shared the message in their private club group chat. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 30 seconds, 6 different members had responded with variations of "on my way" and "ETA 15 minutes." Marcus Bear Thompson, a Vietnam veteran who worked as a mechanic during the day, was already grabbing his tools and heading for his Harley. James Preacher Williams, ironically nicknamed for his Sunday school teaching, was pulling on his leather cut and checking his phone's GPS. These men understood that the darkness of night could hide dangers that a young woman alone should never have to face. What made this response even more remarkable was that it was a Tuesday night in November. Most people were home with their families, watching television or preparing for the next workday. But for the Bandidos, the call to help someone in distress transcended personal comfort or convenience. This wasn't about publicity or recognition. Sarah's message had been seen by maybe 50 people in a small community group. This was about doing what was right when no one else was watching. As the first bikes fired up in garages across the county, a coordinated rescue effort began to take shape. Tommy coordinated routes to ensure they'd approach from different directions, maximizing their chances of finding Sarah quickly. Bear grabbed extra blankets and a thermos of hot coffee his wife had just finished brewing. Preacher loaded his bike with jumper cables and a portable phone charger, thinking practically about what a stranded motorist might need most. The rumble of Harley-Davidson engines echoed through quiet suburban streets as 6 bikers began converging on Highway 287. They rode with purpose, their headlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. Sarah, shivering in her car with no way to know help was coming, was about to experience firsthand why the brotherhood of the road meant more than just riding together on weekends. The sound reached Sarah before she could see them, a low, rumbling thunder that seemed to emerge from the darkness itself. At first, her heart raced with fear. Stories of vulnerable women encountering strangers on deserted roads rarely ended well, and the approaching motorcycle engines could mean anything. She locked her doors and tried to make herself smaller in the driver's seat, peering through her windshield into the black night beyond her car's dim interior lights. But as the first headlight crested the hill, followed by another, then another, Sarah began to realize this wasn't a coincidence. The bikes were riding in formation, their headlights sweeping the roadside methodically, clearly searching for something or someone. When Tommy's Harley spotted her Honda Civic with its hazard lights blinking weakly, he raised his hand to signal the others. 6 motorcycles pulled over in a protective semicircle around her car, their engines idling like mechanical heartbeats in the cold night air. Tommy removed his helmet and approached Sarah's car slowly, his hands visible and non-threatening. His weathered face showed genuine concern as he tapped gently on her window. "Ma'am, are you Sarah? We saw your message in the community group. We're here to help." His voice was calm and reassuring, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to taking charge in crisis situations. Behind him, the other bikers remained by their motorcycles, giving her space while staying close enough to assist. The relief that washed over Sarah was overwhelming. These intimidating-looking men in leather cuts and heavy boots had ridden through the cold November night specifically to help her, a complete stranger whose only connection to them was a desperate Facebook message. As she rolled down her window, she could see the genuine concern in Tommy's eyes, the same look she'd seen in her father's face during her childhood emergencies. These weren't the dangerous outlaws that society often portrayed bikers to be. They were protectors, guardians who understood that strength meant using your power to help those who couldn't help themselves. Bear was already unloading tools from his saddlebags, while Preacher approached with blankets and hot coffee. Marcus pulled out jumper cables, and within minutes, what had been Sarah's worst nightmare was transforming into an experience that would restore her faith in human kindness. The Brotherhood had arrived, and they brought with them not just mechanical expertise, but something far more valuable, the knowledge that she was no longer alone in the darkness. What happened next went far beyond a simple roadside assistance call. While Bear diagnosed the problem with Sarah's alternator, the other members of the Brotherhood began demonstrating why their bond extended far beyond just riding motorcycles together. Preacher wrapped Sarah in a warm blanket and handed her a thermos of coffee that was still steaming in the cold night air. "My wife made this about an hour ago," he said with a gentle smile. "She always makes extra, says you never know when someone might need it." Marcus, whose day job as a high school counselor had taught him to recognize genuine distress, noticed that Sarah's relief was mixed with something deeper, exhaustion that went beyond just being stranded. As they worked on her car, she began sharing her story. Single mother, working double shifts to make ends meet, car troubles that she couldn't afford to fix properly. The bikers listened without judgment, their understanding nods speaking volumes about their own life experiences and struggles. Tommy made a decision that would change Sarah's entire week. "Bear, what's this repair going to run?" When Bear estimated the cost of a new alternator and labor, Tommy saw Sarah's face fall. Without hesitation, Tommy pulled out his phone and made a call to his friend who owned an auto parts store. "Mike, it's Tommy. I need an alternator for a 2015 Honda Civic, and I need your best price. It's for someone who really needs a break." Within minutes, he'd arranged not just the part, but a payment plan that Sarah could actually manage. But the Brotherhood's generosity didn't stop there. While they waited for the tow truck that would take Sarah's car to Bear's garage, James shared his own story of being stranded years ago and how strangers had helped him. "Sometimes life puts you exactly where you need to be," he said, "not just for yourself, but so you can be there for someone else." The other bikers nodded in agreement, sharing their own experiences of both giving and receiving unexpected kindness. As Sarah sat surrounded by these leather-clad guardians, she began to understand that she'd encountered something special, a brotherhood that lived by principles of loyalty, protection, and service that went far deeper than their tough exterior suggested. The night that had started as her worst nightmare was becoming a testament to the power of community and the unexpected places where angels can be found. This is what real brotherhood looks like, And if you're inspired by these acts of kindness, show some love by hitting that like button and let me know in the comments about a time when strangers became your heroes. The story of Sarah's rescue didn't end when her car was fixed and running smoothly again. Word of the Bandidos' Midnight Mercy mission spread through the community like wildfire, but not in the way most people might expect. Sarah didn't post about it on social media seeking attention or sympathy. Instead, she quietly began volunteering at the local food bank, inspired by the selfless generosity she'd experienced. "Those men didn't help me because they wanted recognition," she told her sister. "They helped because it was the right thing to do. I want to pay that forward." Bear's automotive shop became an unofficial community hub for people experiencing car troubles they couldn't afford to fix. Word spread that he offered payment plans, and sometimes, for those truly in need, performed repairs at cost. Tommy found himself fielding calls from other community members who had heard about the Brotherhood's willingness to help stranded motorists. The Bandidos chapter began organizing regular road patrol rides, especially during harsh weather, specifically to look for people who might need assistance. The local police, who had sometimes viewed the motorcycle club with suspicion, began to see them in a different light. Officer Janet Mills, who had been patrolling Highway 287 for 12 years, noticed the difference immediately. "I used to get 3 or 4 stranded motorist calls a week on that stretch," she explained to her sergeant. "Now I might get one a month. The bikers are getting there first and they're handling it better than we ever could. They've got the tools, the knowledge, and the time to really help people." Sarah's story reached other motorcycle clubs in neighboring counties, inspiring an informal network of riders who began monitoring community social media groups for people in distress. What started as 6 men responding to one woman's desperate message had evolved into a regional movement of bikers who understood that their power and mobility came with the responsibility to protect and serve their communities. The stereotype of the dangerous outlaw biker was being replaced by a reality of leather-clad guardian angels. Local businesses began recognizing the positive impact the Brotherhood was having on the community. Mike's Auto Parts started offering special discounts for repairs that the bikers verified were for people truly in need. The diner where Sarah worked began staying open later on weekends, knowing that the road patrol riders might bring in stranded travelers who needed a warm meal and a safe place to wait for help. An entire ecosystem of kindness was growing around the simple principle that helping others wasn't just good karma, it was the foundation of a strong community. 6 months after that cold November night, Sarah's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The single mother who had once felt invisible and alone now found herself at the center of a community network that had grown around the simple act of people helping people. She had been promoted to assistant manager at the diner, partly because her positive attitude and stories of community kindness had made the restaurant a gathering place for people who wanted to be part of something meaningful. The Bandidos chapter had evolved too, their reputation in the community shifting from feared outsiders to respected protectors. They began receiving official recognition from the county sheriff's department for their assistance in emergency situations. Tommy was invited to speak at the high school about community service and breaking down stereotypes. Bear's garage had become so successful helping people in need that he hired 2 additional mechanics and expanded his shop. The Brotherhood had discovered that their greatest strength wasn't in their intimidating appearance, but in their willingness to show up when others needed them most. The ripple effects of that single rescue continued to spread in unexpected ways. Sarah's teenage daughter, inspired by the bikers who had saved her mother, started a peer mentoring program at her school. Other motorcycle clubs across 3 states began adopting similar community patrol programs. Local churches partnered with the bikers to provide emergency assistance funds for people facing unexpected car repairs. The simple Facebook message that had started it all became the foundation for a regional network of mutual aid and support. What made this story truly remarkable wasn't just the rescue itself, but how it demonstrated that heroism doesn't require superpowers or special training. It requires the willingness to act when someone needs help. The Bandidos didn't save Sarah because they wanted to be heroes. They saved her because they understood that in a world that can often feel cold and disconnected, we all have the power to be someone's answer to prayer. Their leather cuts and motorcycle engines were just the delivery system for something much more powerful, the knowledge that none of us have to face our darkest moments alone. The brotherhood of the road extends beyond just riding together. It's about creating a community where the strong protect the vulnerable, where strangers become family, and where a simple act of kindness can change not just one life, but an entire community. These men proved that sometimes the most unlikely heroes are exactly the ones we need most. If this story moved you, subscribe to hear more tales of unexpected heroes, and remember, you never know when you might be someone's answered prayer. Share your own stories of unexpected kindness in the comments below, because these stories need to be told, and the world needs to know that there are still good people doing good things when no one's watching.